with your faces that a number of you were singing along, and that was very nice. So this week I'm stuck with my little beast sitting on my lap, so I'll try to look over his head at all of you. What I thought we would do this week, let's do two short seasonal songs that I think everybody knows.
I want to be muted.
So the first one, let's do a round of In the Good Old Summertime, and follow that one up very quickly with the best known verse of A Bicycle Built for Two. I just learned there are hundreds of verses to A Bicycle Built for Two, much to my surprise, but we'll do the one that is best known. All right, so sing along. In the good old summertime, in the good old summertime, strolling through a shady lane with your baby mine. You hold her hand and she holds yours, and that's a very good sign that she's your tootsie wootsie in the good old summertime. Now the bicycle. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer, do. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you'd look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. All to you, President Jim.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And now the Pledge of Allegiance. Give me 1 second. Yep. Give me 1 second, please. Having an issue. Oh.
It's up, Jim. It's up, Jim.
Is the flag up? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the four-way test of all the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? And Bob,
and will it be fun?
Thank you, Bob. And now our visitation from Jeff Wells.
Yes. Hi, guys. Connection's a little rough. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's pray. Lord, we're so blessed to be called Rotarians because it means that we're here to serve, just as you are here to serve. Lord, the latest magazine that is in our name talks about this being our moment. And let it be our moment, not just as human beings, but as Rotarians with the mindset to serve all those. And we ask that we would be called upon to serve those that are in need of health, those that are in need of wealth, those that are part of a family that is suffering through this pandemic, those that are friends that are here to help each other, and most of all, Lord, those that are in faith that have so much to offer. Lord, let us be those as well, offering everything we have. And we're thankful for our Creator in all things. Amen.
Thank you, Jeff. Do we have a visitation report from Joe Massey? Okay, I think we'll pass on the visitation report.
Jim, let me jump in there if I can. This is Chick.
Sure, please do.
Kay Kemper by Zoom and me in person visited with Bob and Earl Marie Latimer last Friday afternoon. We had a really nice visit. Bob is managing well. He's very comfortable. understood everything that was going on, but not very talkative back and so forth. In leaving the house, Earl Marie kind of said on the way out that, you know, it's really nice to get visitors and so forth. So any Rotarians who would have an interest, if they will reach back to me, I will give them Earl Marie's cell number. What you do is call and see how things are for the day and what's a good time to stop by and visit. They are sitting there in the house kind of really bored between the virus and his situation, and just go tell good old stories. It was great having Kay on that visit, I can assure you. And by the way, those who don't know, she has been elected rector of Old Dominion University's Board of Visitors. So that's, Bob was the one that brought her in to Old Dominion. She excelled there, then went on to do her own company. And so it's real upbeat for him to realize that one of his proteges and a Rotarian is now ODU's rector. That's it.
Chick, Bob is online watching you right now, so you can say hi to him.
Good. Hey, Bob. Everybody else say hi to Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
And he did say he really enjoys these Zoom meetings.
Well, we enjoy having him here. And thanks for the update, Chick. Anyone else have any visitation reports they'd like to share? Okay, thanks. Let's move on to the introduction of guest, Sally Hartman.
I don't think that's me. I'm
Okay.
I'm introducing the speaker.
Okay. All right. Well, I know we have two guests here. We have Andrea Wood, who is the wife of our speaker, and one of Ross's colleagues joining us from Ethiopia. I'm going to try this again. Fitsum Arugawi. I hope I did justice to that. So welcome to the
that's me.
Norfolk.
Thank you very much.
We're happy to have you. Want to let everyone know that our school of the week is James Monroe Elementary School. Today's rotation scribe is Diana Starkey. On to some club business. I'm going to try something right now. I've created a poll, and I would like you all to just go ahead and answer. Your answers are anonymous, but it would just help us in our planning for upcoming meetings. So I think everyone should have a poll in front of them now. All right, we'll give it about another 10 seconds.
I have a question, Jim.
Yes.
Is there any way to answer with caveats?
Not that I know how to do. But you know what? If you have some caveats to that, feel free to touch base with me offline.
Thank you.
Okay. I think you're now looking at the poll results. About 57% of people said they are. 43 are they're not. And I would sort of agree with the question in that there's, you know, this is not a black and white issue. There's a lot of gray in between here. So, but thank you for participating in that. Want to remind everyone that club invoices went out on July 1st. Please get those back to us as soon as possible. And also in your president's email that went out, I mentioned that there's a couple of District 76 seminars coming out that'll be in early August. If you're interested in either one of those, I would say either or both, but I believe they're both being held at the same time. But if you're interested in either one of those, you should have received your own personal email from the district. And I would love to share with you a link, but each link is actually specifically tailored to the recipient of the email. So if you're interested, that would be the way to attend one of those meetings. Two members of our club, John Paget and Sigurd Whitaker, are both going to be presenters. So it should be, I know it'll be very well done because I know who's involved. So that's great. Let's move on to fines and happy bucks. Who has some good news to share?
I'll go ahead. So during all the COVID stuff, me and my girlfriend actually were looking for a house and ended up buying one back in June. And then on top of that, we also got a four-legged friend from the SPCA. So I'd like to donate some money in honor of that.
Well, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I do. I have some news. So I'm just thankful today that in light of everything that we are experiencing and have experienced these past several months, we are trying to continue to do the work of educating our youth and contributing to the economy here by providing training for jobs for many unemployed people. So I'm saying all that to say that I'm happy that we're starting to come back to work in some form over the next several weeks, and just looking forward to getting some things done on the benefit of the community, for the benefit of the community. So I have some money that I will either Zoom or Venmo or mail or something. I'll get it to you.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other happy bucks? Okay, well then let's go ahead and move on. Our Vice President in charge of programs is Lori Harrison, and she will be introducing our Rotarian of the Day.
Okay, our Rotarian of the Day is Sally Hartman, and Sally has been a member since 2007. And her favorite part about being a Rotarian is that she always gets to learn something new from our speakers. And her fun fact is that she was an exchange student a long time ago in Japan, where she met 6-year-old twins and introduced them to Snoopy and all the different characters, and maintained a relationship with them. And then 45 years later, those twins have children, and she just sent them all Snoopy face masks that she made, which I think is a pretty cool way to go, Sally. So, and now Sally can introduce her speaker.
Yeah, they still love Snoopy to this day. So when you teach children young, it stays with them. So those of you who were part of our club in 2015 may have heard Ross Wood speak then. He was a Rotary Peace Fellow that our club sponsored, and Rotary Peace Fellowships take seasoned and up-and-coming people and pay for their advanced degrees to study and learn about peace, conflict resolution. So our club helped send Ross to England, where he got his master's from the University of Bradford's Department of Peace Studies in Conflict, Security, and Development. So he is from Norfolk, graduated from Maury High, went to the University of Mary Washington, and I have to think Rotary must be really pleased because he's got the most peace-filled resume I have ever seen. His title is a Food for Peace Officer with the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, and that is in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, although he's here visiting family right now. And in that position, he supervises 4 people that are responsible for emergency food assistance for 4 million insecure people in Ethiopia. He's worked with USAID since 2018 as a Food for Peace officer, and first in Washington, D.C. But going back to an internship, he had a peace building internship in Israel. He served in the Peace Corps in Morocco, worked for Samaritan's Purse in South Sudan, which I think is where he was when he spoke to us in 2015, and has worked with them in after disasters in Greece, Turkey, Haiti, Iraq, Kenya, and South Sudan. Since we last saw Ross, he's had exciting new developments. He married Andrea, who's on here, and they have a son named Gideon. And I have a couple of fun facts for Ross. One is he speaks Moroccan Arabic. He climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania in a snowstorm. He and Andrea like to go to auctions and acquire unusual furniture, and one of their acquisitions is a big coffee table with eagle legs of some sort. What else? Oh, he can hold his breath for 3 minutes, which is probably good because he seems to be an open water swimmer. So Ross, take it away. And he'll introduce Fitsum.
Hey, thanks very much, Sally, for that kind introduction. It is such a pleasure to be here with you all again, back in Norfolk. Every time I come to this club and get to hang out with the people that are here, I always feel like I'm coming home. So thanks very much for welcoming me back. As Sally mentioned, I am a Rotary Peace Fellow. In 2015, I was at the University of Bradford getting a degree there. And since then, the experience as being a Peace Fellow has really launched me forward in a number of ways. One of which is, since 2018, I've been attached to Food for Peace's emergency food assistance portfolio for Ethiopia. So it's a very large portfolio where we support about 4 million people on average. That number goes up or down a little bit every year depending on need, with emergency food assistance. And just for context, when we say emergency food assistance, really what I mean is people receive a monthly ration of food during times when they would be unable to support themselves with their own food resources. I also wanted to take a few moments and introduce a colleague and close friend named Fitsum Aragawi, who is currently in Addis Ababa right now. Fitsum, are you able to hear us? No? Okay. So Fitsum is in Addis right now, and they've been struggling with internet connectivity there for the past 3 weeks. So he might come in and out of the call. Hopefully he'll be able to join us later if he's able to resume. Yes. So having said that, I think that what we can do is take a few moments to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing that I'd like to do is just to kind of airdrop you into the Ethiopian context. I'll run through very quickly, rapidly, just an oversimplified, cursory history of Ethiopia, kind of from a political perspective. And Fitsum is actually an expert historian. He's got degrees in history, so maybe it's better for this part of the call that he's unable to hear us, because I'm sure that I will leave out key details that should be mentioned but can't for the sake of time. So once we talk about the history of Ethiopia a little bit, we can talk about some of the challenges that the country is currently facing, which are myriad and immense. As a nation, Ethiopia is facing some real struggles right now, both in terms of its political structures, but also in terms of just the everyday lives of its citizens. So having established some of those challenges, then we'll take a few moments to talk about what the United States government, through USAID or USAID, depending on how you want to say it, is doing in Ethiopia through our emergency food assistance team. And so that really, we'll go through that very quickly. And the reason I want to do that is to be able to establish kind of the country context for you. And then we'll take a few moments to talk about a couple of individuals in Addis Ababa, where my family and I live now for the past year, that I just have been inspired by and really consider to be extraordinary people. And we'll talk about a few of the ways in which Ethiopians who face such challenges are able to remain optimistic and are able to persevere during great challenges. And it occurs to me that as I'm talking, could I just get confirmation that you can hear me before I rattle on anymore?
We hear you fine.
Okay, great. Feel free to chime in with an amen or applause if anything really strikes you.
We asked Fitson to try and unmute his mic, and then maybe he'll be able to talk with you.
Okay, Fitsum, if you're able to unmute, just let me know. I'll send him a message as well.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, sorry. So what I'll do now, I remember if you were around for the talks that I did in 2015, I had a professor when I was in school that would always say, you have to start with maps and facts, maps and facts. So if you'll indulge me for a couple of moments, I will share my screen if I'm able to. Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Did I? Hold on.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, great. Are you able to see that?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so if we begin with this map, this kind of places you within Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a landlocked country. If you can see my cursor, I'm circling. Oh, sorry, I'm circling it right now. To the north, there's Djibouti. To the east, there's Somalia. Excuse me, there's Eritrea to the north, Djibouti right here, and then Somalia here. So Ethiopia sits proudly within what's known as the Horn of Africa. You can see how this kind of shape that juts out into the sea kind of looks like a rhino horn. So we affectionately call it the Horn of Africa. There are about 110 million people that live within Ethiopia, the vast majority of whom are under the age of 30. And within Ethiopia, people are very proud that the country has never actually been colonized. So unlike some of its neighbors, Ethiopia was never a colonized country, but it was occupied by the Italians during World War II. So that's important context to give you a sense of some of the pride that Ethiopians carry in terms of their autonomy and also their ability to persist in the face of significant challenges. Okay, so I promised you, based on that, a rapid history. So here's a map that outlines some of the, more minute details of Ethiopia's kind of geography and topography. We're not really concerned with this necessarily, but it's just for some context in case you're interested. But in terms of a rapid history, and please remember I'm cutting corners here. This is just very fast. Some of you might remember the name Haile Selassie I, who was the emperor of Ethiopia from 1930 until 1974. So he had a 44-year reign that was characterized both by an attempt to bring modernity to the country. He built roads, he established factories within major cities, but also it was typified by the perception that the Emperor Haile Selassie and his courtesans lived an opulent lifestyle and extreme wealth, while the majority of the people throughout the country lived in extreme poverty. So if we fast forward to 1974, a military junta, like a military group called the Derg, deposed the Emperor Haile Selassie. The way that this was presented to the public was that the time of the opulent emperors was over and that the resources of the country would be returned to the people. But what in fact actually wound up happening is that the Derg for 17 years created an extremely difficult living environment characterized by atrocities and just horrible misdeeds on the people in order to preserve their political power. So this was a terrible time, a very dark time for the country. In 1991, another political group, it's called the EPRDF, was able to overthrow the Derg, in part because the Derg had been weakened by the huge famine that struck Ethiopia between 1984 and 1985. I'm sure many of us will remember kind of the Live Aid events and the huge amount of publicity that was captured around the famines that happened in Ethiopia, which were catastrophic. It's estimated that more than 1 million people likely died during those famines.
Ross, this is Jim.
Yes.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
Should we still be on the first slide? Because
You should be on the second slide, which is a map of Ethiopia.
Okay. I think we're all still on your initial slide.
Oh, okay.
You're
There we
on
go.
slide
Okay.
sorter. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yep. That's better. Okay, great. Maybe I'll just leave it like this if that's easier.
Well,
Okay.
it switched to the second one.
Oh, great. Okay, perfect. Okay, in that case, here's the third slide. So this is to give you an image of the Emperor Haile Selassie. Just to give you on the left, Jim, can you just confirm that slide is
Yes.
up now?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay, great. On the left, this is him in his full kind of royal regalia. Very stately man. I think everyone considers him to have been a very imposing figure who carried himself with a gravitas that was extremely impressive. So when the Derg deposed him, there were 17 years of terrible instability, followed by, in 1991, a transition to a more quasi-democratic form of governance. But within that, since 1991, there have been a number of challenges that Ethiopia has faced within this new period. So there's been 3 prime ministers. One of them died in office. One of them stepped down in 2016. And now within office, you have Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who you might have heard of because he won the Nobel Peace Prize last year. So he's doing what he can to open the country up with modern reforms, but he's got a very difficult task ahead of him, in no small part due to the tumultuous history that's still in kind of the fabric of the country and its institutional memory. Okay, so as promised, that was a totally insufficient crash course in Ethiopian political history. And we'll pull this map back up just to give you a sense of kind of where the country sits in the region. So if we fast forward to present day, in addition to some of these challenges related to political structures that Ethiopia has, there are still a myriad number of physical challenges that the country faces. Historically, Ethiopia is prone to extreme weather events. So rainfall is highly erratic. It typically falls within short bursts of intense storms, which can lead to unpredictable unpredictable herd sizes for pastoralists, and then also unpredictable crop sizes for agriculturalists. Throughout the past 50 years, there's just been countless localized regional droughts in various areas around Ethiopia. And then in 2015, there was an enormous drought. It was a 50-year drought. It was devastating for the country. In a local language, it was dubbed the Sema drought. Sema means great equalizer. The idea being that before the drought, someone that had 50 camels standing next to someone that had 5 camels, both of them after the drought would have 0 camels. So everybody would be rendered equal as a result of the drought. So if climate concerns weren't enough, in 2018 and 2019, Ethiopia also had widespread intercommunal conflict. A lot of this was over rights to pasture, rights to water, the perception of political rights being infringed upon. But the intercommunal conflict was intense enough that it displaced a large number of people from their homes, and they had to shelter either with family elsewhere or within temporary transit sites. So unfortunately, in 2018, Ethiopia had the unfortunate designation of having more internal displacement within its country than any other country in the world. And on top of that, there have been a series of politically motivated protests recently within the last 3 weeks that have really called into question the stability of the new prime minister's government, which again is immensely challenging. Okay, and if all of that weren't enough, in addition to that, there are enormous swarms of desert locusts throughout East Africa, the biggest they've been in more than 50 years, that threaten to decimate forthcoming harvests for Ethiopia, which is incredibly concerning to everyone within the country because the locusts eat the greenery that animals, livestock would eat, as well as the crops that agriculturalists would grow themselves. So I'm painting a fairly grim picture, and it sounds pretty theoretical if all you have in front of you is a map and somebody just spewing facts at you. So what I wanted to do quickly is kind of airdrop you into a more real context, just to give you a sense of how calamitous this can actually be for the people that are living in Ethiopia. So what you're about to see now is a short video of a trip that Fitzim and I took to a desertous region called the Somali region of Ethiopia. And while we were on the road traveling between one site and another, we encountered one of these desert locust swarms. So I just wanted to give you a moment to kind of insert yourself into some of the calamitous issues that are facing Ethiopia. So I'll play this right now.
Look there. It's like biblical. Jeez. You can see the clouds of them. Oh my God.
It's like, you remember this year the frogs, when they were hit by grasshopper?
Yeah.
Another video. I'm gonna run off.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So if that doesn't seem intense to everyone on this call, I really don't know what would. It was just a surreal thing to be able to see this in action, having read so many various reports on desert locusts in the region. But this is, just an example of some of the strain under which Ethiopians live, literally not knowing if their livelihoods or crops are going to be plucked out of the sky from day to day by desert locusts as one of a number of problems. Okay, so if I have sufficiently painted a grim picture for some of the folks that require emergency food assistance in Ethiopia, we can take a couple of moments to discuss what USAID, through the emergency food assistance team, is doing to support people that are impacted by these issues. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but if you take a look at this map, and Jim, could you just confirm that this map is up now?
Yes, we're looking at
The map is there.
Okay, great. Thank you. What you're seeing here is an image that reflects all of the geographical areas that USAID sends emergency food rations, which are usually either wheat or sorghum products that are purchased from the United States and shipped overseas, or they are commodities that are purchased regionally in East Africa or locally within Ethiopia, and then distributed within these areas. And the reason that we take those two approaches is that if we buy domestically from farmers that are producing agricultural products in the United States, there is a benefit to those farmers here, and also a benefit in terms of predictability and stability of those markets and prices for sending emergency food assistance overseas. So there's also a benefit to the people receiving the food. But then similarly, if we send the money overseas to be purchased regionally or locally, there's a benefit in trying to build up some of those markets overseas so that ultimately we might not have to send any assistance at all, because those markets would be robust enough to serve those communities without our intervening at all. So as Sally mentioned before we started, we have a team of 5 that in 2019, we supported 4 million people within these different geographical locations that are highlighted here. The little red symbols that look like hats are refugee camps. And we provided food for refugees from South Sudan, Somalia, Eritrea, and to a lesser extent, Sudan and Kenya, for about 700,000 people as well, as a portion of the total requirement for those people. So we're very proud of the work that we're able to do in support of these people. And yes, Fitsum, are you able to hear or contribute at all? I'm not sure if you're able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, great, Fitsum.
Oh,
So
okay.
everyone, this is
So,
Fitsum Aragawi. He works as a refugee specialist with us, but also contributes to all of the food programming that we do. So Fitsum, first I just want to ask, did I get the historical context right? Did that go well?
Yeah. That was a great flow, so it's perfect.
Okay, thanks very much. So everyone, you heard it. It was a ringing endorsement from a historian. Okay, the second thing that Fitsum and I wanted to talk about, though, having gone through some of these elements of the huge challenges that are facing the people of Ethiopia, is to discuss how these people are able to persist at the household level with their families. You know, they live their lives and they do the best that they can to sit in defiance of these outside factors that are beyond their control, but that others might succumb to in more defeated ways. So all that to say that the political history that we talked about, the current context in terms of the humanitarian situation, and the response that we're mounting as USAID, we just wanted to create that as a context for what we're about to talk about next. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the folks on this call might consider this to be a pretty hard pivot in terms of content about what we're going to talk about next. So just bear with me. When Andrea and I and our son Gideon got ready to move to Addis Ababa about a year ago, when we first arrived in Addis, one of the things that we noticed immediately was that there were Volkswagen Beetles everywhere, like all over the city. Everywhere you went, if you drove on the road for more than 2 or 3 minutes, you would see a Volkswagen Beetle. I mean, here you can see 2 of them in front of this city bus. And we saw so many Volkswagen Beetles that Andrea started taking pictures of them out of curiosity to see how many photos she could take before she ran out of subject material. And she never wound up running out of material. We found Beetles that were like kind of tricked out, that had been modernized, that had neon lights under them, ones that were very business oriented and kind of, you know, a commuter vehicle from home to the office. We saw ones that were used to transport goods. You can see the roof racks on this guy that's hiding behind this banana cart over there in front of the construction in Addis. They were everywhere. So we had been given the same briefing on Ethiopia that I kind of just gave you before we left to go out to start our work there. And so we found ourselves surprised that this is one of the things we found in the city. We weren't prepared for this to be like a meaningful element of what we would encounter. And so, having seen so many beetles, so many places, I mean, there's a pink one in the middle of an empty intersection. This happens very rarely, actually. There's so much traffic that normally this beetle would be tucked behind 50 cars in either direction of it, surrounded by traffic. Here we have one in front of a timber store. I mean, they were just all over the place, right? To the point where you would see them sometimes parading down the street with dozens of them in tow. I mean, on the left here, you can see one that's been kind of converted into a dune buggy. On the right, there's a really well-maintained, kind of more professional one. There's a yellow and white one behind that. And you see that a Toyota has snuck into the convoy on the side, but it seems that the beetle owners have kind of let the Toyota hang out there because, you know, I'm sure that the Toyota wants to be more like a beetle. But anyways, this was a real mystery to us. And so having worked with Fitsum at the embassy, I reached out to Fitsum and asked him if he could give me some context for why we were seeing these Volkswagen Beetles everywhere. And Fitsum was gracious enough to make arrangements for us to go and meet with a bunch of Beetles mechanics and also some folks that own Beetles and would sell them. And what we found when we talked with these folks is that Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, they don't have a classic car culture. It's not as if old cars are considered interesting. But these Volkswagen Beetles are genuinely and generally just loved by everyone. They're a beloved car. So Fitsum, what can you tell us about some of the conversations we had with these mechanics and what we learned from them when we were asking questions?
Okay. You know, Beetles, they've got very, very interesting attachment with Ethiopians. And I remember one of the mechanics said that if you call someone a Beetle, that means a lot for him. It means a lot for the community as well. That means he's a stalwart, he's reliable, he's a very, very functioning individual. So they were telling all these stories. Like we've met around four mechanics, and they were really, really in love with the Beetles. And some of them, they were telling us that they can maintain new cars in their garage, but the affection they have for Beetles stick them with this car for many, many years. And some of them, they inherited the garage from their old fathers, and they're still running it. And you can find second, third generation mechanics in Ethiopia doing the Beetle maintenance stuff in their own garage. And so every Beetles mechanic, they are really, really in love with the thing they're doing with them. Over.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Fitsum. And we wanted to talk about one mechanic in particular. This is a man named Solomon Hailu, who's become one of my closest friends, really, in Addis Ababa. So since he was old enough to walk, he's been working in Volkswagen Beetle shops. And like Fitsum said, one of the things that really struck me, and I think Fitsum too, about how these mechanics work is that there are no spare parts from Volkswagen that are available in the country. So these machines are really savored and preserved because they know it's difficult to find replacement parts. And then in instances where parts can't be salvaged, the mechanics are just ingenious in how they can find workarounds to keep them running to a high standard. So it's very rare that you would see a Beetle throughout the city that isn't well cared for, in part because of the mastery that these mechanics have had over the machines. And here you can see Solomon is standing next to a robin's egg blue Beetle from, I think he said 1961, that has a steering column that's on the British side. It's just beautiful. And he's still working to maintain it. Yeah, so one of the interesting things too that we talked about with the mechanics is there seemed to be an immense pride in the perpetuity of the Beetle. And this really struck me because, you know, one of the things that you would hear over and over again is that, you know, Haile Selassie was here and now he's gone. And the Derg was here, which we talked about earlier, and now he's gone. And, you know, we've had these prime ministers and now they're gone. And we've had floods and they're gone. And we've had locusts and we've had, you know, all of these calamitous things that have happened to the country. But what has persisted for these folks are the Beetle and their ability to keep them running and well maintained. And it became evident that beyond just being a means of conveyance, these beetles have become a symbol of defiance and persistence for the people of Addis Ababa and for people throughout Ethiopia more broadly. One of the interesting, like totally fascinating things that we realized when we were trying to kind of uncover how this element has developed is, remember I mentioned at the beginning that Haile Selassie, the emperor, led a very opulent lifestyle. So he was a car guy, actually. He had a fleet of Rolls Royces, Mercedes. He was photographed often and with enthusiasm driving around Addis Ababa in these amazing cars. And what you're looking at in this image right now, this is a 1954 Beetle. And the man that is about to get into that vehicle being escorted by this military group is Haile Selassie himself. So when the emperor was deposed, the military junta, in order to humiliate him, essentially, instead of transporting him in one of his super wealthy, flashy vehicles, they took him from his palace to the holding facility in the Volkswagen Beetle that you see here. And I really think that might have been the beginning of this culture that has sprung up around these cars in terms of defiance. What do you think, Fitzham?
Yes, it is. I want to call his title and want to remind you how powerful he was, how very pompous his lifestyle was. So I'm going to call his title. So Emperor Haile Selassie I, His Imperial Majesty, the conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, King of Kings of Ethiopia, and elect of God. So it tells you a lot. This statement tells you a lot. So this guy, he was forced to duck into a beetle. It's very, very paradoxical for Ethiopians. So it's very, very paradoxical for Ethiopians. So
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Fitzham. Yeah, it gives you a sense of the grandeur that surrounds this man. To have been put into a beetle so unceremoniously. Yeah, thanks for that. That's super helpful in terms of understanding the context. Okay, so I hope that you're with me, that we were confronted by this symbol of defiance and persistence in this beetle. And we love this so much. I mean, Andrea and I, that we started to fantasize about what it would be like to be a part of this culture. And so Solomon was kind enough to facilitate that for us. And a few weeks or months after we arrived in the country, he sold us really as a gift for Andrea, one of the Beetles. And so you can see Andrea here.
Well, hey, everybody. Here we are in our 1961 Volkswagen Beetle. I'm going to turn it on and take a little loop around the driveway. So we got to make sure we have a little start checklist here. This little button thing has to be pulled down. These lights come on. And then we're in first gear. Handbrake is down. We got a little clutch here and a brake, but you got to pump gas to get it to start, and then just a little flick of the, not even flick of the wrist should get this little baby started. Let's see.
Yeah, Yeah, so you don't have to unmute yourselves, but could we please have a round of applause for my beautiful wife? Okay, pause for a few seconds for the applause. Okay, thank you. So we have absolutely loved driving around town in this Beetle. And I realize that we're running up against time, so I'll be very quick here. But I just want to mention that the embassy, so I work for the embassy, and as a diplomat, I'm able to import one vehicle during my tour of Ethiopia. So we imported a 2017 RAV4 that now has diplomatic license plates on it. And when we drive that car around Addis, people are not very nice to us. I get cut off a lot. People honk at me. You know, there's generally not a lot of smiles coming from other motorists or pedestrians when we're in that car. But conversely, when Andrea and I are driving around town in this Beetle, I mean, it's as if the clouds had lifted. People are nice to us. I mean, they wave us in. I mean, if it doesn't get up to speed very quickly, but people don't try to zip around us. This is a true story. I was actually stalled out going up a hill one time in Addis Ababa in front of a coffee shop. And I was struggling and getting kind of frustrated trying to put the car into gear. And somebody in the coffee shop ran up to me, gave me a small cup of coffee and smiled and gave me a thumbs up, kind of like you got this, you can do this. And I took the swallow of coffee, gave him the cup back, you know, popped it into gear, and then I went on my way. So that's just to give you a sense that when we're driving this vehicle around, somehow we're absorbed into the narrative of the city, and we are wrapped around, we are wrapped in the embrace of this symbol of defiance and persistence that's so important to people that are in the city. And so it's just a wonderful experience. And I feel that it's really given us an opportunity to experience Addis in Ethiopia and relationships with Ethiopians in a way that would not have otherwise been accessible to us. And this is a photo that I couldn't resist putting in. That's our son Gideon in his car seat and my mom when we came to visit. We took the family out for a spin in town. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and have a couple of concluding remarks. Let's see. Okay, are you able to see me again?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, very good. So to kind of run us through what we've talked about, we wanted to spend some time at the beginning establishing that life, at least on paper and in terms of news reporting for Ethiopians right now, is extremely difficult. It's a challenging time for a challenged country and a challenged people. But even within that, there are still these symbols of defiance and symbols of persistence. And so one of the things that I want to leave us with and that I've really focused on is having come back from Ethiopia and having had the opportunity to kind of live into this narrative that's around these beetles. I've been asking myself, what are our symbols here? And you know, every time you come back from being overseas, you have the opportunity to kind of view yourself and your own people, your own culture, your own neighborhoods through a fresh set of eyes. And you know, I don't have any answers for you, so don't, you know, I don't have any answers. But one of the things that I keep asking myself over and over again is, what symbol would I be so excited by that I would leap out into traffic and give somebody a cup of coffee because I was so excited that they seemed to understand and embrace that symbol, and in it, what it reflected of me. Yeah, so that's really where we are in terms of our journey around this idea. And as a concluding remark, I think maybe I would leave you with the thought that, as I'm trying to do right now, we should try to identify and celebrate and share the symbols that are reflections of who we would want to be, who we would be at our best self. And if we find symbols that are otherwise reflective, we should leave them and discard them and move forward. Yeah, so thanks very much. I really appreciate your attention, and Fitzim and I would be happy to take any questions you might have.
Before that, George, can I say something?
Yeah, absolutely, please.
So, you know, it's a pleasure meeting your people in the platform. So I'm going to say one thing about Ethiopia and the people. So Ethiopia and the people are facing multitudes of challenges right now. from ethnic violence to desert locusts, from violent political transition to COVID-19. But still, the people of Ethiopia are very, very hopeful of bright future and prosperity. So we are the Beatles. The Beatles survived we different political systems in this country. So I'm gonna assure you that we are the Beatles.
I couldn't have said it better, Fitzum. That's outstanding. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Ross and Fitzum, thank you very much. It was a very informative presentation, and now I'd like to see if there's any questions from any of our Rotarians.
I have one. When are you going back?
So we're actually awaiting guidance from the State Department right now. They're slowly sending folks back that are in the States right now to posts in East Africa, but they're being a little bit cautious for folks that have small children. Just being aware of the strain that could be on health systems there if COVID spreads very quickly. So hopefully within the next 6 to 8 weeks. And if you ask my parents who we're staying with, they might say hopefully even sooner than that.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, Ross.
Hey, Marty, how are you?
I'm fine. They're very happy to have you, and he does remind us how often that he does have a grandson.
That's the real. I mean, the grandson is keeping us in.
That's it.
For sure, yeah.
Well, I have a question. Ross, I want to say what you feel that we should take from how we're living in contrast to Ethiopians.
Hey, Winston. Hey, how are you? Nice to see you, Dr. Whitehurst. Yeah, I think that's an insightful question. The privileges that are afforded to us as a developed nation that has its own internal struggles, but does not fear the dangers of collapse or famine or whatever it is that a country like Ethiopia or its neighbors might. I think it's really important to recognize those privileges and also to ask ourselves, what opportunities do we have to work towards sustainable solutions that would allow those countries to have the same set of privileges that we do, and ultimately eliminate the need for us to intervene there with foreign assistance. Does that answer your question, Dr. Whitehurst?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Jim Sell.
Yeah, Ross, I just want to say that my daughter, Catherine Sell Garcia, manages Feed the Future for USAID out of Washington. And
excellent.
I don't know if you know her or not. She travels to Ethiopia. Well, she hasn't gone for a couple of years, but she's going back and forth from there quite a few times and met some of the USAID people there. So it's a small world we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if we'd been on the same phone call at some point, but I'm not sure we've had the pleasure of meeting. But I'd love to connect with her at some point.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Jim.
Any other questions? Eleanor.
Hi, I don't know if you had a chance to read my chat. A little bit longer than most, but we'd probably like to talk to you a little bit outside of this meeting because we are proposing a project for water, sanitation, and hygiene, and some education, and especially some education for young girls who are stuck between rocks and hard places. And
sure.
Not remembering that you were in Ethiopia, or maybe not knowing you were, we haven't reached out to you, but maybe we can do that if I can get some.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd be very pleased to be supportive in whatever way I can. And that's an important initiative, especially in the areas in Gondar that you've identified. Yeah, so thanks for flagging that. I'll be happy to be in touch. I'm sure, Lori or Sally can connect us by email, I'm sure.
I have another question, if that's okay. Do we have time, Jim?
Yeah, we have time for probably one more.
Just harking back, Ross, when you were with us the last time, can you give us an update of two things? One, what's going on in South Sudan, if you know. And two, for those of us who were there that day, you were so eloquent in talking about Toma. Can you give a little, for those who remember, a little update on her?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. To start with Toma, she's doing really well. She's in school right now, and she's living with a really great family that are supportive of her. She has landed on her feet in Kenya, and man, it's been I guess 4 or 5 years now that she's been in pursuit of her dream of becoming a nurse. So I'd be happy to give a more detailed update with a few photos if that would be interesting. And
Background on who she is for those.
Oh, sure, yeah. So for those of you that weren't around in 2015 when I spoke to the club last time, Toma is she was a member of the Nubian community in the Nuba Mountains that fled a series of bombings that the government of Sudan and Khartoum had to try to force ethnic minorities south into South Sudan. So I met her when I was working at the Yida refugee camp in South Sudan. She'd gone through a harrowing experience, walking long distances from the Nuba Mountains down into the camp, and had lost many of her family members in the process due to the bombings. So she had expressed interest in pursuing studies to gain some sort of competency in healthcare, in part because there had been no medical professionals available to her and the people that she was traveling with when they left the Nuba Mountains. So she showed a lot of aptitude with us at Samaritan's Purse, doing a few things here and there. And we were able to work with what family she had left and some folks in Kenya through some very generous support from folks in the Rotary Club. Marty, can I single you out for that specifically? Is that okay? Marty was very generous to support her when she went from South Sudan over to Kenya. Well, you know what I'd love to do actually is write an update for the club that I can send you in kind of a paper format, giving you some details of where she is right now, if that's all right.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Excellent. And then South Sudan is still a mess. I'm not sure I can update more on that. The civil war continues there. Yida refugee camp is still there. Well, one interesting update I might have though is I think I spoke to you all about Mr. Basherman as well the last time I spoke to the club. Does that ring a bell?
Did he make the little stoves?
Yeah, the stoves. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So his business is still thriving. So just to, which is unfortunate that the camp is still there, but he's still doing well. So. Yeah.
Well, Ross and Fitzham, again, thank you very much. One of the things that's unique about our club is we have a really keen interest in literacy, especially for younger folks amongst us. And so in honor of Ross and Fitzham speaking at our meeting, we're going to be donating a book in your honor to the James Monroe Elementary School. So next time you're in town, feel free to stop at James Monroe and ask them where your book is. But we appreciate you joining us.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Want to let everyone know that our next meeting is August 4th, and our speaker for that meeting will be Susan Sussman. She's a former Norfolk native, now stand-up comedian, and she will be joining us from Orlando, Florida. So between now and then, stay safe. Don't be surprised if you get an email from us with perhaps a pop-up get-together. And in the meantime, stay cool, and we are adjourned. Thank you for joining us. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.